there any moment in your life where you would go back to relive?
I don't think I'd change a thing, man, because I love who I am today. And all of those pain points in my life has led me down this path to where I am. I've got 4 kids and a beautiful wife, and I'm still married to my beautiful wife, nearly 30 years now. Early 30s, I was overweight, and I wasn't, I had really bad anxiety.
So what do you recommend? What do you think is the sweet spot? I hate lifting weights. I go 3 times a week, but I don't like it.
Well, I think about it in just 2 vectors: positive stress versus negative stress. If you feel like you have to do something, like I have to go to the gym, I'm going to increase my weights, I'm going to get stronger, I'm like, I can't wait to get there. It's game on. I'm breathing correctly in there to produce more nitric oxide. I'm doing all these things, and I'm on a mission there. Be the example. Like, I'm 52, I've never felt better. I feel as good at 52 as I did in my late teens. I've got the energy, I've got the muscle mass, I've got the wisdom now. 52, never felt better.
Today we have a very exciting guest that we need. We need more guests like that. A guest that's gonna fight for bringing masculinity back and for strong men to make a huge comeback. It's so necessary. So I'm really excited about our conversation. Mark Iron is from Australia. He and Dr. J are committed to restoring men to their prime. That's his mission. And they have a unique blueprint which is tailored to stimulate lean muscle growth, enhanced energy levels, and stable confidence based on just scientific principles. So there's no complex steps, just a clear time-bound path to transformation. There are so many men out there looking for transformation. We believe that Mark Iron has the answers for you. So please don't go anywhere. Enjoy our conversations. We're going to go deep into how do you get to your prime. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Mr. Mark Iron.
Thanks for having me here. Great to be here, brother.
Mark, welcome to the stream. Tell us a little bit about where do you come from? Where were you born? And share with us a little bit about your parents, your mom and dad. And also, if you could go back to their parents, tell us a little bit about your grandparents.
Well, yeah, my mum and dad, I don't know too much about my father's grandparents because he doesn't know too much. He left home at a very early age, so there's not a lot of history about his parents, unfortunately. So I can't really talk too much about that. But my mother, we were raised, she was born in a small town called Glen Innes, and that's where I still am to this day. So we've been here for quite some time. And she had a fantastic mum and dad, and just the standard old upbringing that a lot of people of that generation experienced, and they instilled those values under me about being a good man and being courteous and all of those things. So that's kind of my mum and dad. And as for me, I was just I'm 52. That a couple of actually last week I turned 52. So so. Yeah, I just had a standard old upbringing, outside a lot, and back then there was no technology to distract you. I was doing really good as a young kid. I didn't do too well at school. I didn't like school. I didn't like school at all. In fact, my teachers said to my parents that young Mark, he should work with his hands because he's not too smart. But it turns out that that's not the case. There's a thing called fixed mindset and growth mindset. You can increase your intelligence. You just got to work at it. It's just hard work. That's all you got to do. So that's things I learned along my journey as well. Let's cut forward to my late teens there. I started to go bald at about 16. That kind of upset me, and I was deeply worried about the dating and things like that. And at 21, I decided to get hair transplants. Yeah. And that was a bit of a journey over about 5 years. And it didn't work out too well for me. I started to get staph infections on the top of my head, which went down in my face. And it got to a point where it's pretty painful. It didn't look great. I went to my doctor and he said, Mark, get home, pack your bags, get to hospital, you could die. And that terrified me. And I was in hospital 4 nights with an IV with antibiotics coursing through my veins, man. And after that point, I forgot about I just didn't, my experience with hair transplant. I said, this just isn't worth it. And I'm lying to everybody around me. It's not who I am. So I shaved my head, and that's what I did after that point in my life.
Did you say you almost died because of the hair transplant?
Yeah, like I had staph infections on the top of my massive infections, pus and everything. It went down in my face and infected my face.
Wow.
And yeah, just the doctor took one look at me and said, get to hospital. Yeah, it wasn't a pleasant experience, let me tell you.
I'm so sorry you had to go through this.
But all of these little things that this are part of our journey, I think it's just telling us something. That told me to stop lying to everybody around me about, having a full head of hair. It was about, you're supposed to be bald, so live it and, own it. And that's what I did.
Yeah. I guess my life started to change. And when I stopped lying to others and when I stopped lying to myself, being honest with others is called honesty, but stop lying to yourself is called maturity.
Yeah.
You had to mature at a very early age.
Yeah, I was about 28 at that point, 26, 28, when all these things, I started to get staph infections at 26 and I was on antibiotics, half the year, a lot of the times, which isn't great for health. And 28, that's when, in hospital for 4 nights, yeah.
Well,
yeah.
Tell us about what do you think are the first moments in your life? What is your first conscious moment? When do you realize you were alive? The first moment when you were like, oh, I'm here.
I think it was probably when I was close to 4.
Mhm.
I was at the front where the glass sliding door was, drinking some what was called Tang back in the day, and I was getting ready to go to preschool. I think that's one of my first conscious moments, and I didn't want to go. And it makes sense to me looking back now, because we'll talk about this as we progress. When it comes to anxiety, I've had my genome sequenced, and I'm the 98th percentile for anxiety. So in a room of 100 people, I'm number 2. So that's why I have attacks, social anxiety, performance anxiety, all of these things. But because your genetics suggests that you're going to be anxious, you don't have to live with it. You can get over it. That's the point, but you've got to face it. And there's a lot of scientific literature now to show you the steps to do it, but you've got to get the stress out of your body, because the stress in the body can drive anxiety. And that's what I learned from my PhD advisor in 2020.
So how were you approaching anxiety back then?
I'd medicate on alcohol.
Alcohol. What was your favorite one?
Yeah, that was my poison of choice. So 5 o'clock came, and that was what I used to call beer o'clock. Yeah.
Beer o'clock?
Beer o'clock, yeah. So my probably late 20s and early 30s, I was basically a borderline alcoholic, yeah. I had 3 kids at the time. I've got 4, beautiful wife, and I'm still married to my beautiful wife, nearly 30 years now. And I was drinking so much in the afternoon, at night time, that I'd hide beer bottles around the home so my wife wouldn't know how much I was actually drinking. I'd wake up the next morning, pick them up, quietly put them in the bin. She knew. She knew. Yeah. So I know what it's like to be a weak, broken man, and it doesn't make any logical sense. I knew it was dumb and I shouldn't be doing this, but when you've got anxiety the way that I had it, it's just, you just do dumb shit all the time.
Yeah. I guess in Australia, maybe have you tried anything else besides alcohol for anxiety, like self-medication?
Well,
Smoke weed?
Well, here's the story. So early 30s, I was overweight and I wasn't, I had really bad anxiety. Then 2 days after Christmas, I had a lot of alcohol and bad food and pizza and shit, and I wasn't feeling too good. And probably I think it was 11:30 in the morning. My heart started to race and I just felt weak and I was having brownouts and my extremities were tingling. I thought, oh shit, I'm having a heart attack. So my wife, she rushed me to the ER, and the doctor and the nurses on staff thought I was too. And my blood pressure was through the roof and my heart rate was like 160, 170. Then clearly I didn't have a heart attack. They wheeled me away, did some blood work, and they tested the blood for markers of a heart attack. And I didn't have a heart attack. And I said to my doctor, what happened? He said you had a panic attack. And then he explained it. The panic attack can mimic a heart attack because it's just stress hormones through the roof. But he said to me, if you had a weak heart, it would have killed you.
Mm.
That was it after that point. So for the next 3 years, they medicated me on beta blockers. They also medicated me on anti-anxiety drugs. And it took the edge off, but I still had minor panic attacks all throughout those. But I was packing on the fat and I was dragging my lazy butt out of bed and I was still drinking the alcohol. Then probably 3 years after that, Saturday morning at 10:30, I'll never forget it. My wife said, "This is ridiculous. You have to change. You're not the man that I married." So that was a kick in the ass that I needed. So I thought, what can I do to fix this problem? So health. So I started looking at health. Then I wanted to get lean and have energy again. And I wanted to get off these anxiety drugs and beta blockers. So I thought I could either hire a personal trainer or I could pay that money and become one. So that's what I did. It was just over $4,500. Did my Cert 3 in personal training. And I thought that was the key. The problem I learned is that when I came out of there, for the next 3 years, I tried to get lean, but I couldn't. Failure. I did everything they said to the T. It was basically carbohydrates, low protein, fat, and run. That's their solution. And one afternoon, I went for a walk with my wife, and she said, "Listen, honey, you look good in the T-shirt." And I thought, oh, man, how am I going to be a successful personal trainer if I, look good in the T-shirt, So the way that I try and solve problems is if I can't solve it myself, I reach out to experts that can solve the problem for me. Well, Scott Stevenson, he's a PhD in applied exercise physiology. He's a pro bodybuilder and he trains pro bodybuilders. And I thought, if this dude can't get me lean, no one can. And he did. And that's my first run-in with the systems advice. They just don't optimize you. The nutrition was completely different and the training was so much less. I had energy, I was eating more, and I got lean very quickly. So that was my first run-in with the system.
Well, let's work.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot less cardio, and the gym workouts were shorter. Instead of being like 45 minutes to an hour, they were 30 to 40 minutes, and only 3 times a week. And I was like, shit. And I was hungry to get back to the gym. I didn't feel like I was training hard enough.
Right. I had this problem myself, and it was my diet, obviously. But I used to work so hard at the gym, and my trainer used to give me 6 meals, and sometimes I would eat so much, I was like, I feel sluggish, and then I listened to a podcast about intermittent fasting, and that's what helped me. But I've had trained with a professional bodybuilder trainer, and unfortunately, he moved out of the state. But I worked with him for about a month, and I've never seen such a great progress in just 4 or 5 sessions. Like I would go home, and I'm like, what? Where did that come?
Yeah.
They're definitely, they know stuff we don't know. They know some hacks, So
So,
you're saying what was the main difference in the diet?
well, he was actually way back then. So that was my probably 36, 37. I'm 52 now. And it was basically intermittent fasting, way back then. But I wasn't eating enough essential fatty acids, right? So you got omega-6 and omega-3, and I wasn't getting enough omega-3. This is the problem with the Western diet. It's saturated with omega-6. Then over time, over 12 weeks, you can have an imbalance of omega-6 and omega-3, and that puts you in a pro-inflammatory state, low-grade inflammation, and that shuts off muscle growth, and you start overproducing cortisol, it tanks serotonin, and it also interrupts the dopaminergic system in your brain, so you're more impulsive about foods and things like that. And I had no clue back then when he told me this. He didn't explain to me those points. So I didn't know why I was doing the things I was doing. But he was also getting to me eat things like butter, right? You're told not to eat. And also to have grass-fed beef instead of the grain-fed beef, and didn't explain to me why. So there's a few tweaks there that I had no clue about. But the main thing was there's a lot more protein and carbohydrates. Yeah, so I was still getting carbohydrates, but I was eating them at the end of the day. So that was a big distinction for me.
Oh, so he does recommend carbs?
Yeah, we also did what's called carb refeeds. So once a week, you had a boatload of carbohydrates. And I did that on a Sunday. We're talking 3, 4, sometimes 500 grams, and low protein, low fat. I just don't like that lifestyle. But I used to love it back then.
Wow. Yeah, I've heard from bodybuilders that carbs are not that dangerous. I mean, there's something with the micros that they calculate, It's basically like a bank. The more calories you burn, the more you invest in your account, and the less calories you intake, the less money you spend.
It's your personal carbohydrate threshold. So genetically, some people are predisposed to have poor glucose tolerance, and some people don't. So you got to identify your personal carbohydrate threshold. But you think about it like a bank, exactly what you explained. So the muscle's the biggest reservoir. So when you eat carbohydrates, they turn to glycogen in the muscle. And there's a little bit that's stored in the liver. And once you fill up those organs, the muscle and the liver, it's a spillover. And you're constantly spilling over glucose. And the problem with the system is that most people are spilling over all the time. And it's estimated now that about 92.3 have some kind of metabolic dysfunction in the United States of America, and insulin resistance is the biggest driver of that.
So when people are stuck, which I've been, and you have been at some point of your life, what do you think, with everything that you know now, what do you think is the first step? Is it a hormone test? Is it blood test? Is it changing the diet? Is it going to fasting? What do you think is the first step so they could get hope? Because I remember working like a dog and not even dropping a pound and can't gain muscle, but I sweat every day, and it was frustrating, like to work hard in 2 weeks and no change. So I know some people, and it was just diet. It was just I was eating food that was terrible. It's obviously diet, but sometimes we have just the wrong beliefs and we think something's good for us. And it's not like, some people are like, oh, it's yogurt, but then it's full of sugar and all kinds of stuff. So, what do you think is the first step for everyone? Is it because we're all different, right? Like you said, some bodies are unique.
Yeah. First step is, as I learned from my PhD advisor, you've got to do a full comprehensive blood lab. Allopathic doctors, so they teach you the food pyramid, right? The Western diet. If that doesn't work, then they prescribe you drugs. This is what happens to a lot of people. Then you become a lifelong customer of Big Pharma, and that's the road that I'm heading down.
Yeah, I don't like big pharma.
Basically, their business model.
Yeah.
So, get a comprehensive blood panel. You've got to get the right blood labs measured, and you've got to get it into optimal ranges. An example of this is fasting insulin. Allopathic doctors will very rarely test it unless they suspect you've got type 2 diabetes. Then they'll test it. But here's the problem with that. Standard lab says between 2.4 and 24.9, which is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And functional medicine says you got to get between 2 and 5. So if you're north of 10, and we see this with all the people that we work with, and we've worked with over 150 over the last few years now, once you're over 10, your testosterone comes down, your fat loss comes down, your energy comes down. And that's what they tell us to expect as we age, right? So this is what we see common in a lot of the people that have got hormonal disruption and they have trouble with fat loss. So once you get it under 10, it's getting pretty good, but you've got to get it down. If you want to be optimal, below 5 and between 2 and 5 is your fasting insulin. Then you've got ferritin, you've got fibrogen, then you've got LH, FSH, you've got all these blood panels they don't even check. So you got to get those checked to see what's going on. And once you get that, it's a framework by which you can start fixing where you're busted inside. Yeah.
Wow, doesn't seem as easy.
It's pretty easy. It's just you can do two things. You can get an online blood test and do it yourself, which costs about $500, which isn't cheap. Or you can choose to work with a functional doctor, and he'll do it for you, or she'll do it for you, and they can charge anywhere from a $200 consult up to like thousands of dollar consult, depending on who you go to. So my functional doctor charges me about $180 every time I see him. So and they know the right blood labs, and they know where to get them in optimal ranges. So that's the difference between allopathic medicine and functional medicine. So you want to go to a functional doctor.
Well, you were right about the Western medicine. It's like if you compare it to a car, it's like they treat the symptom. So if you get your check engine light or the oil light on, you're not just gonna go and turn it off. You're gonna change your oil. But here, you take an aspirin. It's like you have deficiency of aspirin. So you have other problem, but they don't want to go to find out where is the actual root of the problem.
That's right.
If you're getting a headache, or if you're stuck, or something's wrong with the digestive system, there's something causing that, and instead they'll give you something that will address the symptom, and then who knows what kind of side effects from there on, and then you become subscriber on multiple departments in big pharma.
Right, man. Yeah, it's like a band-aid on a bullet wound. And the root cause is just festering away. And then you'll need more drugs down the road. That's the problem.
Yeah, and we're being attacked from every single angle: food, environment, packaging, just every single thing you can think of, water, drinks, every from everywhere. It's just the attack is brutal.
Yeah, that's the second thing that you got to think about. The chemicals that are coming into your body, right? They're everywhere. They're in our food, personal care products. They're in non-stick fry pans. They're also in synthetic clothes. They're in candles. They're all over the place. In fact, scientists have tested homes and offices, and 100% of homes and offices, they found these chemicals. We're even breathing them in. Yeah, but here's the great news. Once you eliminate the vast majority of these chemicals coming into your body, the little bit that we're breathing in, we can deal with. Our body can detox, not a problem. But if you've got a lot coming in, as Dr. J, my advisor, explained to me, you start storing them in your fat cells and in your body, and they act like Trojan horses, just destroying those organ systems. And our beloved government says low dose is okay. And the science,
I know.
no dose is okay. It's just like in the morning, you shave, you use your toothpaste, your deodorant, and they're all full of these chemicals. So you've got to buy the right personal care products. So it's just like you've had a couple of drinks of beer, right? You've got these chemicals floating around. Then you cook on the non-stick fry pans. So you think you're doing the right thing. You're eating the non-organic foods, and you've got atrazine and all these glyphosate chemicals in them. So you're eating those. You got another dose, and then you're going throughout the day. Instead of being a nose breather, which you should be, you're a mouth breather. So all these chemicals can't be filtered. So your nose can filter up to 70% of these chemicals out. So there's a lot of things that people can do. Yeah, it's I call them Trojan horses, and man, it looks like it's a master plan to lower men's testosterone, because these chemicals, the vast majority act like estrogen. Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely design. There's evil design.
Yeah, that's what Dr. J says as well, and Dr. Ken Berry, who we work with as well. So we yeah, like Dr. J, when he did his PhD on sex hormones for over 5 years, he went back through all the scientific literature to the 1940s, and a man my age had about 800 testosterone. Now it's 350.
Wow.
A rapid fallout in the 1980s, 1.6% per year, which is 16% per decade. And that's serum testosterone. Now, free testosterone has been going down 2 to 3%. And free testosterone is what you want up, because it goes into the muscle cell to build muscle. It's what goes into your brain to lower fear and anxiety and increase courage, confidence, and optimism and motivation. It looks like they've designed a lifestyle delivered to you and me as a Trojan horse to do that, to keep us working in their system, paying our taxes, paying our super, all the while our body and brain's turning to mush. We get to probably 65, retire, and it's supposed to be the best days of our life, but our body and brain is just failing. And then also, dementia set in, they ship us off to a nursing home. I don't want that life.
So what do you think is the best way to counterattack? What do you think is the best source for testosterone? How can men consciously work on that on a daily basis?
The easiest thing to do is to eliminate the chemicals from your life. That's the first thing to do. And it's just the personal care products, the non-stick fry pans, like all the synthetic clothes. They're made from petrochemicals. So these petrochemicals from synthetic clothes, they actually leach. They've shown in clinical trials now, if you wear them and they do urine tests, you're pissing out all these chemicals. And if you don't wear them, you're not. So like just that alone. And then you've got things like candles. A lot of people use scented candles, and they're toxic. So you can use beeswax, non-scented, they're fine. So there's just so many of these Trojan horses that are just lurking in our house and everywhere, that once we become aware of them, we can take them out of our life. So then we're only getting a little bit of these chemicals in our body, and we can deal with that. We can detox that, no problem.
Have you ever had some friends that say, "Come on, Mark, this is too much. You're like freaking out now. You're going too far"? when you start warning them about things, you go to their house and you're like, well, there's toxins everywhere.
Yeah, it's just think about it. Like, this is what I explain to my clients. Do you think that pesticides and chemicals is what your body needs? Think about it. They're floating around in your heart, your testicles, your brain cells. Do you think that's a good idea? Because they've been shown to be cytotoxic, neurotoxic, genotoxic. That's a whole lot of toxic.
Yeah.
And poison is the dose. We can detox some of them, but if we're getting a dose everywhere, we can't. And it's causing damage. And that's the problem.
Yeah, I agree. What's your favorite meat? What's your meat of choice?
Beef.
Beef? Is the beef in Australia compromised?
I think they're putting the mRNA jabs in there, yeah. So we've got local butchers that we can work with.
So you definitely buy your meat from trusted people.
Exactly, yeah, trusted sources. So basically for me, it's lamb.
I was going to ask, yeah, what about lamb?
Yeah, lamb, beef, and pork, and a little bit of chicken because it's very nutrient poor. Like chicken is very nutrient poor as compared to lamb, so pork.
Most bodybuilders here load up on chicken.
Yeah. You've also got to be very mindful. Like I've got a gene for hemochromatosis, so that's iron overload. So you've got a lot of iron in those products. And if you continually eat beef and iron-rich foods, you'll have iron overload. So what the easy solution for that is you donate blood, and that keeps the iron at healthy levels.
Donate blood?
Donate blood, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I have to do that. How often do you do that?
3 times a year.
3 times a year? And how much do you donate?
I think it's like 750 mil or 800 mil, like whatever they do. It's just it's under a litre, but that's what we do here in Australia. Yeah.
Yeah, I need to start doing that because I'll be saving people's lives.
Yeah. The thing about iron, like in the Western diet, they fortify iron in cereal, breads, everywhere, and you can still get iron overload even if you don't eat the iron-rich meats.
Wow. So you think we're having too much iron?
We are, like probably close to 85% of the people that we test have iron overload. The problem with that, again, this goes for the standard panel versus the optimal panel. So a standard panel, say anywhere between 30 and 400 is okay. Now coming from the functional medicine and Dr. J, between 50 and 100 is okay. That's where mine sits. Mine's generally anywhere from 70 to 90, doing 3 blood donations per year.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to start doing that. Are you familiar with Dr. Gundry? He's got the theory about the tomatoes, potatoes.
Yes.
What do you think? Do you eat tomatoes?
Well, if you're sensitive to lectins genetically and not genetically, it can be an issue. The poison is the dose. Over 60% of the people that we test have lectin issues, so they're going to be very careful about how much lectins they get in their diet. And the other, 40%, they don't have to worry too much about the lectins. So it's really, the way I think about it, what is the best diet for you? Well, we do genetic testing, so it's your genetic code diet is what I call it. So if you know that you're sensitive to lectins and nightshades, you just eliminate those out of your diet. And that's what I have to do because I'm sensitive to nightshades. Like nightshades put my blood pressure up. It will cause anxiety and fatigue in my body, and it will also tax my liver. And as you're in the class of organophosphates, so organophosphates are in pesticides. So that's why I have to really eat organic. Yeah.
Wow. Are you familiar with this eat right for your blood type? Do you think that makes any sense?
It makes logical sense. We've had a couple of guys that said, look, I want to eat my blood type as well. And they were told that their blood type, they should eat these foods. However, the genetic report contradicted that, saying if you eat these, you're screwed. It's the old blood type report. So it made sense when they did it, but if you have a genetic code and you have genes that do work, and like here's the thing, your genes make proteins like enzymes and whatnot. Now some of these genes will make proteins really fast, some will make them average, and some will make these proteins really slow. So lectins, to clear out lectins, some people make them really slow, so they can't detox the lectins out of their body. So if they have a lot, it causes stress and inflammation in their body and heart disease down the road.
Yeah, so you're not a big fan of lectins, huh? Just not to take the chance.
I don't have a sensitivity to them. I have a sensitivity to nightshades and natural plant insecticides, basically, lectins. So I have to avoid lectins anyway.
So the best way to find out if you have sensitivity is to do a genetic test.
Correct. So what you can do, there's two sites, 23andMe and
Mm.
Ans. So what you do is it's about $100. So you order the kit comes to you, you spit in it, you send it away. 3 to 4 weeks later, they'll have your genome sequenced, and there you can download what's called the raw DNA data file, and then you can send it off to a third-party provider that can do a genetic report for you. So there's lots of people that can do this genetic report. Like Dr. Rhonda Patrick does it. She's got a very cheap one for about $40, and that's a great.
What's her name again?
Dr. Rhonda Patrick.
Dr. Rhonda Patrick.
I can foundmyfitness.com. So once you get your 23andMe or your ancestry, you can go to her site, and you pay that, I think, $20 or $40, and you upload that report, and it spits you out a very comprehensive food sensitivity and gene sensitivity. So that's a great place to start. Yeah.
There's a conspiracy theory that they collect our DNA from there because
Yeah.
we really give it.
There's a lot of our clients have had that concern, and it's warranted, absolutely. But I've got nothing to hide. I don't care if they've got my DNA. I want to know how to thrive.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to know how to thrive too. So I might just take your advice and do that. Is there any moment in your life where you would go back to relive and you'll be able to also edit the consequences and edit your moves or decisions or choices, but you also have the option to don't touch anything and just observe it one more time? Which moment would you rather go back to?
I don't think I'd change a thing, man, because I love who I am today. And all of those pain points in my life has led me down this path to where I am. I wouldn't change a thing, in all honesty.
What would you like to enjoy reliving again?
In my teenage years, I was a pretty good golfer. I'd like to kind of tweak some of my attitude back then. I would have been so much better. I had a bit of a temper on the golf course. I'd like to go back and tweak that temper. That's one big thing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's very nice of you. Very very humble of you. So, what do you think are the steps, the second step, once when you figure out your genes, your blood type, your weaknesses, and your levels of insulin? And as far as the work, do you recommend something that's maybe like, for example, I play football a lot, soccer, play
Yep.
4 times a week, and I don't think about how hard it gets or how much I get tired. I just give it my best. It's also a mental relief for me because I get in the zone and I forget my problems. I forget everything good or bad. I'm just in the game. So for me, and sometimes when I look at my watch, I'm like, wow, I burned 4,000 calories. And like if I go jogging, I'll never do that. I'll never be able to do that. And then average speed, you know, this many miles per hour. I'm like, wow. Do you recommend doing something that you love? I know Tony Robbins jumps on a trampoline because he's also lazy for physical exercise. And then obviously, as men, we also need to invest in our temple, And but I hate lifting weights. I go 3 times a week, but I don't like it. I do
Right.
push-ups, I try to stay away from it, but it makes such a big difference that I want to do it. And when you said, oh, instead of 45 minutes, 30, 40 minutes, if the shorter it is, I can do 20 minutes of anything. So if you have some tips on how to stay steady and how active a man must be, because I am sometimes I work twice a day. I would run, do work on my core, and then play soccer at the night, and then I would go to the gym, take a walk, try to keep 10,000 steps. And Saturday I keep for like activities like freestyle if I go play with the kids or something like that. And Sunday I play soccer. So I'm active almost every day. And like my cousin would tell me, you need to take one day to rest or 2 days to rest. And there's all kinds of stuff. I also follow this crazy guy Goggins who never stops. So I hear his voice all the time. Get up. And so what do you recommend? What do you think is the sweet spot?
Well, I think about it in just two vectors: positive stress versus negative stress. So if you feel like you have to do something, like I have to go to the gym,
Yeah.
it puts your physiology more biased towards stress and cortisol and less towards testosterone. So when I go to the gym, it's like, oh yeah, I get to go to the gym. I'm gonna make, I'm gonna increase my weights. I'm gonna get stronger. I'm like, I can't wait to get there. It's game on. I'm breathing correctly in there to produce more nitric oxide. I'm doing all these things, and I'm on a mission there at it. There's no noise. There's no music. It's just me and the fucking weights, man. And I get to do that, and I know how beneficial it is for me. And you can take that mindset to any area of your life, with your kids, at work. You have to get to a place where you understand that negative stress is going to raise cortisol, which is going to bring down testosterone. And you want to make as much testosterone as you can during the day. So if you feel negative, you've got to shift that within about 3 minutes. And there's many ways you can do that. Like if you change your physiology, like Tony Robbins says, like you stand taller and you're like, I can do this. You better believe I can do this. This is a necessary step to the next level of my life. And you change that. You go from negative stress to positive stress, so you've got more energy. But you've got to make it real. Like this weight training is going to put the muscle on me so I can eat more carbohydrates. And the more muscle you've got, the more testosterone you make to support that muscle mass. If you train correctly in the gym, you're always, increasing your testosterone. But the unfortunate truth about training too hard in the gym is you make way too much cortisol, and to build muscle, you've got to trigger a pathway called mTOR, mechanistic target rapamycin. Two problems with that. Cortisol will shut down that pathway even if you're eating good food after that. So you're not putting on muscle, and it degrades branch chain amino acids in the muscle cell itself. So you're moving everything away from muscle building recovery. So you've got to really, I just set my day up so everything is in positive stress away from negative stress, because the more negative stress you're in, you've got brain circuits like the amygdala, insular cortex, periductal gray that get larger with the more negative stress you experience. But once you start shifting your physiology to positive stress, they actually physically shrink over about 8 weeks, and their activation potential comes down, so you're less triggered negatively. So it's a huge mindset, man. You've got to be telling yourself, even though I used to hate this, I love it now because it's a necessary step to get to the next of my life and make me the strongest man I was born to be. That's what I'm always thinking about. And I've got my personal coach in my head. You've got David, got Jocko Willink.
Oh, I love Jocko too. Yeah.
Come on the call this morning. I was in the cold shower. It's about 6 degrees Celsius for 3 minutes, and that wakes you up, brother. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. You do the cold plunge?
Oh yeah, it's so beneficial. They've shown if you do it before weight training, it can boost testosterone really high, and it sets up your physiology to have a great session.
Oh, you do it before?
Yeah, not after, because it mitigates muscle hypertrophy. They've shown this now. So you do it before.
Yeah. The first time I did cold shower in my life, I've tried all kinds of drugs in my life. I've never been higher in my life. I was like, "Ah," like I
Right.
woke up. I like woke up from hibernation. I've been sleeping all my life, but I was really scared, like depressed at the time. And when you're depressed, you want hot water. You take these long hot showers. You're deep in the comfort zone. You could stay there under the shower for an hour. And I was like, I'm done with this. I'm going to challenge myself. And I just turned it all the way to the right. I'm like, I'm not gonna get out of here no matter what. And I'll sit here for 5 minutes. And it was brutal. I was screaming. But after the 5 minutes, I stepped out of the shower and I've never felt more alive. It was like a complete shift. And like my brain was functioning faster. It's like I don't want to compare it to any drug because it's so much better. And right now, my shower at home, it's not as cold. So there's no freak moment. There's no and I take 5 minute showers again, but it's not the same. So I need to get into that ice bath.
Yeah, Celsius, which is about 50 Fahrenheit. So what I do in the summer, like it's winter here, it's about 6 degrees Celsius. I just go to the service station and get some party ice, about 4 bags of that, and just chuck it in down, and I get
Yeah, that's the real deal. It's like a free fat burner. Apparently, we have some type of chemical that's like a free supply,
Yeah, exactly. What happens if you've got dopamine? It gets metabolized into noradrenaline, which gets metabolized into adrenaline. So it just goes down that pathway. Noradrenaline and adrenaline go into the adipose tissue, which is your fat cells, and it burns body fat, right? So it attaches to the fat cells and you start burning body fat. And for 3 to 4 hours after that, coming from Professor Huberman, neuroscientist at Stanford, it increases dopamine, which is motivation, focus, neural energy, physical energy, 250% for 3 to 4 hours. So that's exactly why I do it in the morning, man. I'm just focused for the rest of the day. The brain is on.
How long do you do it for?
3 to 4 minutes.
3 to 4 minutes. You follow Hoff, what was his name? The Iceman?
Yeah, like I do Wim Hof breathing as well.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Somebody else told me that he's doing that. Is it on YouTube or where
Yeah, an app on my phone which I use. It's just a guided way through it, and probably at least 5 days a week, sometimes 6. I just do 3 rounds in the morning.
Wow. So is that during the session of the cold plunge or not?
No, that's after. Yeah. So another thing that I'll mention now, coming from Huberman, is that if you want to optimize cortisol for the day and thyroid stimulating hormone, you need to get out into the early morning sun. So the photons hit the retina and it triggers all these clock cells to switch on our hormones. So cortisol will be optimized, and then it tells the thyroid stimulating hormone to switch on, which is great for metabolism and fat loss and muscle building and brain function. It tells all these, it's like a switch. So think of the sun as a switch. You don't want to look directly at the sun, but you just want to be out in the sun. And 10 to 30 minutes seems to be ideal. And you can also use light therapy as well. So if the sun, you want to think about it through an evolutionary perspective. Our ancestors in the winter, say the sun came up at 8 o'clock in the morning and went down at about 4. You didn't make a lot of thyroid hormone, right? So thyroid's powerful at boosting testosterone, number 1. Number 2, fat loss. Number 3, muscle growth. And it puts more enzymes in pathways in your body to increase your metabolism. So it's doing a lot of heavy lifting. Now consider for a moment that the sun's up at 5 and it goes down at 7, and you get up at 5 and you're out in the sun. You got a massive dose of growth hormone to get shit done like a boss. More fat burning, more muscle growth, high metabolism. So in the winter, I've got a light therapy device that I'll switch on at about 5:30. But in the summer, I'll just go out into the sun. So it's that important. Yeah. It's what scientists call precise circadian entrainment. You've got to understand that all of your clocks has cells and it's linked to the sun and when you get your first dose of sun. And the caveat, if you wait 3 hours after you wake, you hit what scientists call the circadian dead zone. All bets are lose it. So you're making a lot of cortisol at low dose all throughout the day and you feel like garbage. And this is what most people experience in life.
Well, I wake up at 4:45, and during the first hour, I'm very stingy because the first hour and the last hour are the most important. So during the first hour, I read, but my intuition is like, get out there. And I work out in the second hour, but it's so much better to experience the sunrise. There's just something glorious about the sunrise. We're like connected. There's something pulling us towards it.
Exactly. Like the sunrise, low solar angle, you've got far and near infrared, and that light penetrates deep into the tissue. And they're shown now that it produces collagen turnover. So you look youthful. It's shown in clinical trials now it actually reduces wrinkles. Another thing that it does, it enhances healing in the body as well. And it also bioelectrically charges up the mitochondria in your cells to give you more energy as well. And that's the low solar angle. And they've also shown that if you get a dose of the low solar angle, it protects you from the harsh midday sun, the UVB.
Oh, well, those are all great tips. And what do you think is the main? Do you think that spirituality is aligned somewhere with reaching the prime of a man?
Yeah, I believe this meat bag that we're in fosters our spirit. And if the meat bag is sick, our spirit can't do anything. We're too tired. We're too lethargic. We're too stressed. We're too negative. So you have to get the body working for you. Once the body's working for you, that sets your spirit free. Yeah.
Otherwise, there's just no desire. It's hard for the body to carry the spirit.
Exactly. Yeah. The body gives you clues, and we are told to accept the norm of as we age, our energy declines, our testosterone declines, our brain function declines. But scientists like Professor Walton from MIT and many other neuroscientists have shown that our brain evolves to increase in size and IQ as we age, providing it has what they call trophic support. Once you have trophic support, you can thrive.
Do you think that men need to get together and do man stuff? Do you think that's kind of like going away a little bit with history?
Yep, like there's a structure in our brain for being social. And if we aren't social, coming from Professor Human, you release this metabolite called tachykinin. And tachykinin makes you feel negative and like the world's plotting against you. I think when we were forced to just be in our homes with COVID,
Yeah,
separate, divide, and conquer is what they tried to do to us.
yeah. United. We need to stand united because it's us versus they, and they're
Yeah,
not part of us.
yeah, the elites, bolus, and they're doing that by changing food policy.
The division is so powerful, and it's kind of like the same pattern in every country. You can see it. We don't realize that they try to divide us on every single possible topic. Race and politics, and we're focused on these small nuances, and we're actually agreeing on 98% of the things. Like, for example, nobody wants to be stuck at home. Nobody wants to die from bad food. Nobody wants all these chemicals to be around. So 98% of the things, regardless what party you follow or what race you are, we agree on. But we don't agree on 2%, and that's what we're shoved in the face, like sexuality and all these distractions. So how do we fight this? How do we unite? How do we recognize that actually we have so much more in common versus they, and they are not part of us. They work against us, and
Yeah,
we need to unite because we're way more powerful than they are. They're fewer than us. They have an agenda. They're not hiding from it, so there's no conspiracy about it. They like coming out every day. But here we are sitting, and I try to interview as many strong men like you because I feel like there needs to be an uprise. There needs to be a revolution of man.
yeah.
And I love your message, and I agree with you. I think that the man hits his prime around 50, 60 probably, because you have the perfect balance of wisdom, experience, humility, meekness, your body, the biggest muscles. You could be a calm and wise leader. And as men, we don't mature, especially today, until at least after 30. Is when we start. Otherwise, we act like teenagers. Some men don't ever mature. But what do you think needs to happen in each country and in the world? Because the hope of this world is strong men.
I agree. What we need to do is do exactly what you and I are doing now, getting the message out. Keep talking about it. But you've got to do it in a very indirect way, because if you draw too much attention to yourself, they shut you down. You know what I mean? They take you off media, they close your accounts. You've got to be very careful about what you say.
Well, they also use us to shut each other down.
Yeah,
Like some of the people that believe what they say, they're like Agent Smith. They're like programmed, and you could be showing evidence and proof, and they just don't want to accept. It's like a different reality, and it's funny that we're experiencing that in today's age. But awareness is the first step. So doing that, talking about it, bringing it out, it's good. But what will be a second practical step?
be the example. Like, I'm 52. I've never felt better. I feel as good at 52 as I did in my late teens. I've got the energy. I've got the muscle mass. I've got the wisdom now, which is so key.
They don't
But
want us to be healthy. They don't want us to be strong. They don't
yeah,
want us to be united. They don't
Dr.
want us to be good to each other.
Dr. Ken Berry said to me two profound things when I spoke to him: that the government knows all about men with low testosterone, but they don't care. Why? Because when you tease low, you roll over and take it. He went on to say, can you imagine trying to govern a population of men with optimized testosterone? That would not go too well for you if you were the government. Then he went on that they feed you a slave diet. So you feel full, your belly's full, and you look like you're eating a lot of food, but you're chronically malnourished because the foods that they actually tell us to eat lack vitamins and minerals. They're nutrient poor. So we don't have enough vitamins and minerals to keep all our metabolic pathways turning. So we're fatigued and we reach for the shitty food of the elites. They're contaminated with toxins because we're too tired to cook our own stuff. And because we don't know what real energy feels like, and we believe the narrative that they're spinning, that as we age, our testosterone, our energy, and our brain function declines, which is all garbage. They just believe that so deeply because they've just been brainwashed by the elites to believe it.
Yeah. How do you prioritize your relationships in your life? Who do you what people do you trust the most? What people do you put first and second and third?
Family first, always. And then it's just the people that have the same mind as me, that believe that the system is busted, and they don't believe those three profound things. Your energy declines, your testosterone declines, and your brain function declines, right? Once you understand that's not supposed to happen, it is not natural. Like Professor Human said several times, neuroscientist from Stanford, there are men in their 90s, which isn't rare, that are making as much testosterone and DHT, dihydrotestosterone, as they were in their 20s.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah. Like I've got 67, 8, 900, and one guy 3 weeks ago, 61, 12, 70 testosterone. So, we're not supposed to have the low T that they say we do.
That's great. Well, I'm gonna start working in that direction because I want to be one of those 90-year-old men with plenty of testosterone,
Get up and go.
with 18 kids. We're like, stop. Well, tell us about Australia. What's the climate there? Like in America, we're in crisis. We're in division, and economically, we're not doing well. The middle class is being attacked like never before. So before 5, 10, 20 years ago, America was the land of opportunities where everything was possible. I came from Europe, and I bought a car literally 2 weeks after I worked here. And in Eastern Europe, you have to bet your house to the bank to buy a used car from Germany with 100,000 miles.
Yeah.
And then that's the car for the rest of your life. So to say the least, the opportunities were way different, way bigger. And now the playing field is almost getting even. Like the gasoline is just as expensive as Europe. People don't make enough money. Food is extremely expensive, and there is not enough organic food. So it's low supplies. It's just illusion of ownership. One of the things that made America great is that you own so much. You can buy a house, you can buy a car, you can start investing in real estate, but now ownership is becoming a little bit harder. So what is the climate in Australia? Do you see a change after COVID? Are things better or worse?
In some industries, they're better, but that's not going to hold. In a lot of industries, they're worse. The inflation rate is ridiculous. We're basically following your lead in America. So we see the division. They're trying to knock out the middle class, or they just want the elites and the poor. That's all they want. That's their whole MO. And we're seeing it everywhere. It's like our kids, unless they have a lot of money each year, will never afford a home now. It's just so expensive. The repayments are just crazy. And when COVID came in, interest rates were like 3%. Now they're nearly double that. So they're trying to kick people out of their homes now. I'd suggest in the next 6 months we're going to see a massive drop in real estate. So it's just rocky waters over here too, and that's what they want. So it's playing out in front of our eyes, and most people are awake. They've got no clue.
Yeah, this is a problem because we're tolerating and allowing that, but the lack of unity is what makes them so powerful. And if you imagine, if 30, 40 million people choose not to go to work tomorrow, then they'll be in trouble. If 30, 40 million people choose to go and cash out from their bank accounts, they will have to admit that there's not enough, that all this money are a bunch of ones and zeros, that they don't have the cash. So
Yeah.
I feel like we already know all these things from TikTok, and like they're in your face, they're in our face, and we're still sitting there pretending. So they've achieved something incredible in human history where we're questioning our own basic instincts. Like you could literally ask every citizen, do you think the government is corrupt? And they would say yes. 100% of citizens would say, maybe 91%. But here we are accepting that. So what do you think has to happen until there is some sort of balance or justice? Or do you think we've passed that point?
I think there's going to be a revolution, man, like in the next few years. But you think about it, the elites are trying to control that. Like, $1 trillion every day goes through the the world's economy. And half of that is controlled by the elites, so they control a lot of the economy. So I think if we get to a point where we say, look, we're not going to build your planes, we're not going to build your infrastructure, we're not going to do this for you, right? You have to start paying attention to what we want. I think it's going to get to that point, and I think it's going to happen sooner rather than later, because a lot of people are talking about it. And what we have to do is just keep speaking about it and letting people know that it's right in front of their eyes if they actually open their eyes and look. But the mainstream media is the problem. They're owned by the elites, and they say that we're conspiracy theorists. Right? We're not allowed to have an open, honest, intelligent discussion about this. They shut you down, call you an idiot, a Fruit Loop. And that's how they're painting, mainstream media are painting people like you and me. They're trying to get the word out there that maybe we should think twice about what's going on. We just have to about it.
Well, unfortunately, that's what we need to continue to do, and I agree with you. But there's so many struggles because if nobody had an emotional trauma before, what you were describing, like that lack of human connection, COVID destroyed some friendships forever, just made people's perception different, and it's harder and harder to to be united. So, do you? I understand that you have a career as a coach. Do you have some type of tribe, some type of community of strong men that at least you're uniting?
Yeah, like they understand the system. Like that's the first thing that what I do is I place the evidence on the table and I show them what's happened, and that takes 3/4 of an hour. And I say, what do you think? Do you think this is playing out? And they all say, yep, I can really see for what it is now. So that's the first thing that I show them, and I just tell them you've got two camps. You've got the elites, allopathic doctors, then you've got functional doctors, and people that want to do good by humanity, and that's where we've got to situate ourselves. We've got to be that person. Because I believe in my heart there's going to be a revolt. People aren't going to stand for this, like these 15-minute cities, controlling of our money. We can't spend it on what we want to spend it on. If we say something wrong on social media, we can't buy fuel, all of this stuff that's coming out. If that really happens, I think people won't stand for it.
I think Australians are very mellow and friendly, but they're also the other extreme, pretty crazy when. So you never know. It's kind of like a bipolar disorder. They're very friendly and loving, but they could also be really pissed and nuts.
Yeah, we've got senators that are speaking in Parliament about these topics now. Climate change, the experimental mRNA vaccine, which isn't a vaccine. They're bringing all these topics up, and a lot of they're getting brushed off a lot, you know what I mean? So, but they're being shared on social media and they're actually still staying up, which is good news. So people are becoming aware.
So the climate change is a thing there too?
Oh, yeah. But we've got senators that are proving it wrong, if you know what I mean? So,
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the same guys with the climate change are riding private jets. So
yeah, it's it's just unbelievable. It's that they can get away with this, and they're doing it in plain sight. It's like they're just laughing at the general population, saying, "Look at these losers."
Yeah, who knows how this is gonna end? But definitely our country, and I think the whole world is in jeopardy of losing basic freedoms. I come from a communist country. I wasn't born in communism. Actually, I was, but I don't remember consciously being a victim of communism. But I can definitely smell it, from far, far away, because I was shocked in America with the freedom. Americans really have a lot of freedoms that are not available in other parts of the world, and they're taken for granted, and they're trying to strip away those freedoms little by little. It's sad because people in the world are used to having tyrants, and they're more easier to submit and to behave. But when you see Americans acting like that, it's getting real scary.
Exactly. Like one of the what I'm trying to do is make men physically strong, which makes them mentally strong, so that they want to stand up and fight for what they believe in. And then that comes with great hormones, great energy, all of those things. I'm trying to give that back to the men that we help. I think that's a long step in the right direction, because when you've got low testosterone, you've got decreased motivation, energy, vitality. You've got feeling sad and blue, decreased mood, impaired cognition, memory, all of those things. And you think about that as a handicap. It's hard. I'll do it tomorrow. I just couldn't I just can't think about it now. And that they wake up every day in that low emotional drag, and they're just dragging their body through the day. And they get to the end of the week and think, oh, thank God it's Friday. And they just repeat that on Monday, you know what I mean? And they think, oh, one day, I'll get this right. Getting worse. Their body's being damaged and it's causing pathologies, and they're just not getting any better. So I just want to educate them to know that they can fix themselves, and it's not normal for low T. It's not normal for low brain function. It's not normal for low energy. They want you to believe that, and that's how they keep you down. That's how you control a population. Fear, anxiety, virtue signaling.
How exactly do you help those men? Because I'm sure there are men watching right now, and they are experiencing what you and I have experienced, where they want to get in the right lane, they want to work hard, they want to get in their prime, but there's something preventing them, and it's probably a problem that could be solved based on the many alternatives you gave us. How do you help someone who's not in Australia? Do you work remotely with people?
Yep, Zoom calls. So the bulk of my clients are in the United States.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know that I found you on Instagram, so you've got quite a following on Instagram. And do you also have a YouTube channel? Where can people?
I'm very active on TikTok. I hardly post on Instagram anymore. So I don't do a lot of work on Instagram. I find TikTok and YouTube to be the best. So that's kind of where I'm very active. So Facebook, not so much. I just don't like Facebook and Instagram too much anymore. But TikTok is a great place where you can actually speak the truth. And that's what I like. Yeah.
Good, good. Well, all kinds of information about TikTok here, so I stay away from it, but maybe I'll check it out. Facebook is getting old. I've got all kinds of warnings and stuff on Facebook
Yeah.
because speaking the truth. So Instagram too. But you're saying TikTok allows you to say whatever you want
Be very careful about what you say on those platforms.
on Instagram.
Yeah, like Dr. J's always getting censored there. He's sick of it.
Yeah, but TikTok allows you to say whatever you want.
Yeah, you just got to be very. It's a lot easier than Facebook and Instagram. TikTok it's a lot better because you can post a video and I reach at least 10,000, 20,000 people per video. It's waking them up is what I'm finding.
So just more people are on TikTok.
Yep, yep. Yeah, like you can build a big following very, very quickly. When I first started on TikTok, I went a couple of videos, I was over 10,000, So you can pick up a lot of traction on TikTok very, very fast.
Okay. Well, I'm going to work on that, and I'll definitely find you there and follow you.
Yep.
Is there something that you would recommend where people can maybe subscribe besides TikTok? Do you have a YouTube channel as well, or?
Yep. No, just find me on YouTube. Just search for Mark Iron. So I'm at Mark Iron, all one word. So if you type in at Mark Iron, you'll find me there.
Thank you so much, Mark. I mean, this has been so refreshing. I feel like our belief system is completely aligned, and our ideology, and we can smell the smoke from far away. And
Yeah.
we're on the same mission. So if there's anything I could do to support your brand, or if you need anything from me, please count me as a partner. Count me as someone that is on your team. If you guys are watching this, please follow Mark. He's a good man, and he is on a mission to drive men to their prime.
Exactly. That's what it's about. So don't be denied. I'm 52, never felt better. I was on big pharma drugs, anxiety, blood pressure, arthritis, all that. And I'm off them now, and I'm living my best life, and I feel amazing.
Many people suffer with anxiety. And a lot of people smoke weed, they take drugs, they drink alcohol, they try to medicate. What I forgot to ask you and really wanted to ask you is there some type of mind trick that you learned with the years to control the anxiety? Because anxiety is not always bad. Sometimes it gives us a sign. It's kind of like an alarm button, and we need to be, the way I see it is, we need to be just aware of our surroundings, or the lies or the thoughts that are going in our mind. Just really check ourselves. That's what I think. It's more of a preventative thing rather than destructive thing if we learn to control it. Is there anything you could give us?
Yeah. So 2 key principles that I follow religiously. Stress in the body causes stress in the mind. Got to get the stress out of the body. It can drive low-level anxiety or high-level anxiety. And the problem with that is you've got a brain structure called the amygdala, which drives fear and anxiety, but also aggression. And the more anxiety you experience, the larger, physically larger it becomes, and the higher its activation potential becomes. So you can hear a loud noise and you're startled, right? That means your amygdala has a high activation potential and it's physically larger than it should be. So once you get the stress out of the body, you're at a position where you can actually now shrink the amygdala down and lower its activation potential. There's a lot of tools you can use for that. Focused breath meditation. There's certain types of meditation, but you've also got to do what's called increasing your stress tolerance. So you've got to get comfortable with higher activation states in your body, right? So what's very important to understand is the stress in your body, adrenaline, you've got a blood-brain barrier and it cannot go into the brain. You can stay calm while your heart rate's 120. And the way you do that is train your prefrontal cortex to hold the metabolism. So the specific things you could do, like when you're in the cold shower or cold bath, it's like, oh, I'm cold. So metabolism is lost from the prefrontal cortex and actually goes to the stress states. So you can do math calculations like 100, 93, 86, 79, 72, 65. Count backwards, and you're keeping the metabolism up there. So you're teaching your body to be in a high activation state while remaining calm. And that's what I learned to do. And I'm able to speak on stage now. And I had panic attacks, performance anxiety, social anxiety. So I'm always following these principles.
So what is your distraction? What's your hack for speaking on stage?
Know your shit. Know what you're speaking about, yeah. So if you're confident in what you speak about, no problem. I can speak on stage for an hour, not a problem at all. Mental conceptualizations, I speak through talking points. So I'm up to talking point number 1, I can visually see that. This is where I am. Then I segue into talking point number 2. I just know how to do that. I've done it so many times. I have confidence to speak on stage. But you've also got to find, if you start speaking too fast and you start to stammer, you got to change your posture and, slow your voice down and, use a bit more your belly, so it's speaking differently too. And this is just all soft skills that you can learn.
It's the second biggest fear I think people have, speaking on stage. I've done it more than a dozen times. 1,000 people is the most people I've spoken in front of. But in the beginning, I used to do a method that I learned from 8 Mile somehow from Eminem. So I used to stand on the stage and say, my name is Velcro, not Velcro, not that sticky stuff. And I'm going to fake this accent to get your attention. So those were the 2 things I was the most embarrassed about. And I would just bring them up front and people would start laughing and then I would get into my speech. But I also think if you speak about something you're passionate about, something that is important to you, you speak from the heart, and like something that you really know, if you know your shit, you speak from the heart, and you don't need any professional technique. It just comes out professional. It comes out like you're well prepared. You do the pause and everything, and you increase your passion as you go. And it's because of how genuine you are. And when it's well practiced, you can tell it comes from the mind. It's just there's no energy being transferred. There is no and some people, like, I'm a huge Tony Robbins fan, but I know there's no way for him, because I've been on a show that's like a 10-hour show. He doesn't stop. And I'm like, this guy has practiced this to perfection because he knows exactly what state you're in and how to take you out, how to take you out. So kudos, but again, I think there's a huge difference between speaking from the heart and speaking from the mind.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that's the case with you, because you care about this, because you healed from this, because you've met doctors that are rare, that are stewards to medicine. They're not slaves of big pharma, and you are passionate about this problem. You love the world, you love people, you love men, you love children, you love women, and you love freedom, and you want to stand up for it, and you feel like you're called to do it. So not only you would speak great in front of people, but the larger the crowd, the more interested you would be.
That's it. Like, if you speak about your experience, that's what I find to be the best, because people understand who you are and where you're coming from, and you relate to them because they might have experienced some of the things that you've experienced, like my hair transplants, my stint in hospital, my heart attack that was actually a panic attack. And there's other things that I've done in my life that I'm not proud of, like the alcoholism as well.
Yeah.
And when I had one of my shoulder surgeries, it was a sterno, and they said if we slip, We hit an artery, you're out. So I did this for my doctor, and I got a 6-pack of beer before that. And I just was knocked out. My wife woke up at 6 o'clock in the morning, and I was on the ground unconscious, nearly died. I woke up in hospital at 3:30 in the afternoon wondering what the hell happened. I've done some dumb shit in my years.
How did you quit alcohol? Because there are some people that I truly love in my life. Some of my best friends are struggling with that, and I can just see them because alcohol is such a good and such a bad drug. It gives you this almost this courage that you normally don't have,
Yeah.
and it helps you calculate risk really well. So you do things you normally wouldn't do, you don't have normally the balls to do, and now this is, you like that version of you, and it's self-destructive, but it's also socially acceptable, so that doesn't make it easy. And then at some point I feel like when things get tough, when the alcohol starts taking control, victim mindset kicks in, and that's the hardest part to overcome, because you start blaming, complaining, having excuses for everything. And a lot of people have like long-term alcoholics. They stop drinking, but they call them dry alcoholics because the victim mindset never leaves. So what was your, well, obviously you told me that your wife kind of called you out, and something clicked. Was
Yeah.
that the main thing? You were like, I'm choosing life.
Well, I'm a bulldog. Once I set my mind to something, I just do it. And the first 2 weeks were tough. By the time you get to week 4, it's like, why was I even on that shit?
Right.
Got to replace it with something functional. You got to replace that alcohol. That's one of the key
What did
things.
you replace it with? Working out?
I did, yeah. Yeah, like my danger time was 5 o'clock, so I replaced it. That's when I worked out. I work out, it was time to eat, and then I went to sleep.
Nice. This is this is what most people feel like. Life is so much better. Do you ever drink?
Occasionally, not too often. So what I also learned about alcohol is I used to drink really fast. So what happens is dopamine comes up and comes crashing back down, and that's when you reach for another one. So if you have a very slow drink over the course of an hour, you get the nice little buzz, but you don't get that crash back down. So you can have one or two, and that's basically all you want to really do. You want to enjoy some good company. So if I do drink, that's all I ever do.
Well, maybe it's because, and I had a similar experience, maybe it's because we weren't drinking because of the taste, but because of the effect, because we were hiding from something. We were trying to use it as medication rather than enjoyment. And sometimes, like with a nice cigar, a nice bourbon or
Yeah.
scotch, would just hit the spot, but really enjoy it, versus doing tequila shots until you black out. Well, there's also the relationship with the fact that I think it killed more people than any other drug. It destroyed more families and more, it traumatized more children than anything else.
It's a business model, I think, like it's hard to get off. It fuels the economy. Like in Australia, the tax is 60% on alcohol. They make a lot of money from it. I think that's why they leave it in the system. But, if they didn't have it, it'd just be black market. We'd still get it. You know what I mean? You just got to be sensible about alcohol. And once you can get to that place, like I've got genes that predispose me for alcoholism. So, and people think, why are you an alcoholic, man? Like, well, I've got genes for that shit. Right?
Yeah, there's a
Component of it. So I've got to be very careful.
so that's a thing, right? Sometimes the body just wants it.
I've got 2 genes that are responsible for wanting, like when I have the drink, it's more. I just don't want to stop.
Tell me, what is one of the most amazing stories with some of your clients, like a amazing testimony?
It's just getting to a place where they have energy, they have vitality, they're putting on muscle, they're getting lean without counting calories, and they're doing it effortlessly. They didn't think it was possible because they've been brainwashed by the system to think that this is, as we age, again, the 3 points: low T, low energy, low brain function. It's not supposed to be that way. And once you break out of that, when you're in that low physiology, you just think this is the way it's supposed to be. When you break out of that, and they say that after a month and they feel really good and they go back to that way of eating, it's like, oh, fuck, that's toxic. I'm not doing that shit again. because you can see it is.
Yeah, if you don't eat ice cream for like 3 months and you taste it, it's just too sweet. It's too disgusting. And the same thing you were doing buckets of, before. It's just the taste buds even change.
Yeah,
Mark,
right. Cool.
you've been very generous with your time. We can talk forever. So I appreciate you, brother. Thank you so much.